Is this the end for Danny Ricciardo? Let's talk about it. Welcome back to On Track GP, everyone. Today we're diving into what could be the final chapter of one of the most beloved drivers in F1, Daniel Ricciardo. His career might be hanging by a thread, and Red Bull's all-or-nothing approach seems to be heading straight toward, well, nothing for Danny Ric. Ricciardo's been a fan favourite for years, but now he's at a career crossroads. Will he end 2024 in the cockpit, or will his F1 journey be cut short before the season's even over? Stick around as we break down the latest rumours and what's next for the Honey Badger. Ricciardo returned to Red Bull with high hopes. After a rough stint with McLaren, he thought this was his shot at redemption, but here we are heading into the final races of 2024, and it's looking more and more likely that Ricciardo might not make it to 2025 or even to the end of this season. Daniel Ricciardo's return to Red Bull seemed like it had one clear goal: to light a fire under Sergio Perez and remind him that no one's seat is guaranteed. But a hand injury after just a few races opened the door for Liam Lawson, who has now made a serious case for a spot on the F1 grid. While Ricciardo was supposed to challenge Perez, his injury may have inadvertently handed the future to Lawson. Daniel Ricciardo has since said that he has a good idea that he might have driven his last race in Formula 1. The Australian, who has won 8 races in a career that dates back to 2011, is tipped to be replaced at Red Bull's RB team before the next race in Austin, Texas, by reserve driver Liam Lawson. So how do we get here? Let's rewind for a second. Ricciardo's been in a bit of a weird spot since his return to Red Bull. Ricciardo left Red Bull for Renault at the end of 2018 and spent 2 seasons in the French team, in which he performed competitively before moving to McLaren in 2021. Once there, he struggled to get on the pace of teammate Norris and was dropped after the 2022 season, a year before the end of his contract. After 2 difficult years at McLaren, he was brought back as a third driver in 2023 to Red Bull. Ricciardo landed that 3rd place seat as a reserve and was brought back to a race seat halfway through last season as a replacement for Dutchman Nick de Vries, whose performances for the junior team had not been enough to satisfy management. The idea was simple: if Sergio Perez kept struggling, Ricciardo would be ready to step up. But like many things in F1, it hasn't gone according to plan. Ricciardo's performances this season have been, well, fine, and in Formula 1, fine just isn't enough when you're aiming for the top. He's had some good weekends, but also some anonymous ones. But more often than not, he's been outperformed by teammate Yuki Tsunoda. And with Red Bull needing to plan for the future, the pressure is mounting. Enter Liam Lawson, the young driver who Red Bull needs to make a decision on by the end of September. If they don't give him a race seat, he's free to go. And trust me, there are teams out there who would love to snap him up. So what does that mean for Ricciardo? Well, it's simple: Lawson in, Ricciardo out. This isn't just a battle for 2025 though, it's about what happens in the next few races. There's a very real possibility that Ricciardo could be replaced by Lawson before the season even ends, and here's where it gets really interesting. Red Bull's bosses, Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, have been suspiciously silent on Ricciardo's future. When asked directly about Ricciardo, they've avoided giving any guarantees that he'll see out the season. It's almost like they're preparing us for the inevitable, and Ricciardo's recent comments suggesting he knows it too. After the Singapore Grand Prix, he looked like a man who knew his time might be up. You could see it in his face. This isn't just a race-by-race evaluation anymore. Ricciardo himself admitted this could be it, and if you're a Ricciardo fan, that's tough to hear. It should be mentioned that there is an outside sliver of a chance that Red Bull throw a curveball and Ricciardo ends up in the Red Bull seat instead of Perez, but that's a slim chance. That would need a lot of factors to come into place, with Lawson and Tsunoda, with Ricciardo and Verstappen and Perez making way. So let's talk about Ricciardo's performances this year. They haven't been terrible, but they haven't been spectacular either. Sure, he's outperformed his teammate Yuki Tsunoda on a few occasions, but it's been inconsistent. For every weekend where Ricciardo shines, there's another where he struggles to make an impact. And here's the kicker: Red Bull's competitiveness has dipped this season. The car's development has been all over the place, and that hasn't helped Ricciardo's case. But the reality is, if you want to stay in F1, you need to be exceptional, and Ricciardo knows he's fallen short. And now Lawson's knocking on the door. He's been waiting for his chance, and Red Bull's management is in a tough spot. Do they let Ricciardo finish the season, or do they give Lawson the seat now and start preparing for the future? It's not like Lawson hasn't proven himself. After stepping in for Ricciardo, Lawson's strong performances have people questioning if Red Bull will swap him in full time. With Red Bull's junior talent pipeline getting crowded, the team may be forced to make some tough decisions. If Lawson doesn't get a seat, other teams like Sauber could swoop in. He scored points when he stood in for Ricciardo in 2023, and Red Bull knows they've got something special in him. But is now the right time to pull the trigger and give Lawson the seat? Ricciardo's comeback wasn't the redemption story many hoped for. Even before his injury, his performances weren't exactly lighting up the leaderboard. Perez, on the other hand, had woken up and was doing what Red Bull wanted: consistent podiums without challenging Verstappen. As a result, Ricciardo's return, though anticipated, started to lose its lustre. And what about that fastest lap? Asked if setting fastest lap at Singapore Grand Prix, which he finished last, was a final hurrah, Ricciardo told BBC Radio 5 Live, possibly yes. So if it is, I guess that's a nice way to say adios. He added, "I am not too sure what the plan is, but I mean, look, I've obviously got a good idea." Ricciardo setting the fastest lap generated some controversy because it took the point away from McLaren's Lando Norris, who won the race and is in a title battle with Red Bull's Max Verstappen. It did not help RB in the championship because a driver only earns the point for fastest lap if they finish in the top 10. Asked why the team had pitted him for fresh tyres at the end of the race, a spokesperson for RB said, "If it was to be his last race, we wanted him to go out on a high." The RB spokesperson added that the team did not know whether the decision had been made or not. Ricciardo's future will be decided by Red Bull management, primarily Christian Horner and Helmut Marko. Ricciardo said, "I guess it could help Max out by Abu Dhabi, so maybe there's a Christmas present coming if he wins by a point." Verstappen responded, "He can ask for whatever he wants." The Dutchman, who was teammate with Ricciardo at Red Bull from 2016 to 2018, paid tribute to the 35-year-old. "He's a great guy," Verstappen said. "We always had a great relationship. We had a sporty rivalry in the team. He'll be remembered as a great driver, as a great person. He was a great character. It's very rare someone hates him. In a few years' time, when I won't be here anymore, we will sit back and have a beer and remember all those years together." Let's zoom out for a second. Red Bull's decision right now are about more than just 2024. They're thinking about 2025 and maybe even beyond. Perez's seat at Red Bull Racing is looking more secure for the rest of 2024, but there's no guarantee he'll be around for 2025. That's where Lawson comes in again. If Lawson impresses in the second half of the season, he could very well replace Perez as the main Red Bull team in 2025. But here's the thing, if Lawson moves up, that leaves the door open for Ricciardo to reclaim his current seat. Confusing, right? And that's without mentioning Isaac Hadjar and other drivers within the Red Bull family. So is there any hope for Ricciardo? Well, maybe. If Lawson gets promoted, Ricciardo could stick around in the Red Bull family and take his seat back at the second team. But let's be honest, would Ricciardo want to hang around as a backup again? At 35, with his best years behind him, he has got some tough decisions to make. Ricciardo has openly questioned whether it's worth continuing F1 if there's no future at Red Bull Racing. He's even joked about being scared of racing in other disciplines like IndyCar, but the truth is, he's not sure any other racing series would give him the same thrill as F1. So what's next for the Honey Badger? Could he find a way to stay in F1? Maybe, but the more likely scenario is that F1 journey might be coming to an end. And if that's the case, he'll need to start thinking about what life after F1 looks like. Whatever happens, Ricciardo's left an indelible mark on the sport. From his daring overtakes to his incredible victories, he's been one of the most exciting drivers to watch over the years. But now it seems like the writing is on the wall. But he didn't leave the sport quietly. Danny Ricciardo's fastest lap and driver of the day in Singapore will be remembered for some time. It's a sad day for the sport and the fans, if indeed he is fired. Ricciardo's future is hanging in the balance. Red Bull may have already made up their minds, and Ricciardo's performances may have forced their hand for 2024, let alone 2025. There's also a chance that he could explore a role at another team, but those opportunities are dwindling fast. What's next for Ricciardo? He had Singapore left to prove himself and he finished last. So if Perez can hold form and Lawson keeps impressing, Ricciardo may find himself back in the role of Red Bull's reserve showman, if not out of F1 entirely. Ricciardo had to choke back tears when asked why he had sat so long in the cockpit of his car after the race. He said, "A lot of emotions. I'm aware it could be it. Just exhausted after the race, so a flood of emotions and feelings and exhaustion. The cockpit is something I got very used to for many years. Just wanted to savour the moment." Guys, this might really be it for Ricciardo. He's had an incredible run, but F1 is brutal and it looks like Red Bull is ready to move on. Could there be a twist? Maybe, but as things stand, it's hard to see a way back for Ricciardo. Let me know in the comments, do you think Ricciardo deserves one more shot, or is it time for him to hang up his helmet? Let me know your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more F1 news and analysis. Keep the pedal to the metal, and I'll see you at the next race.